question. So, I mean, I had a lot of struggles in school. I was, a lot of people look at people in the aerospace industry and they call us, "Ooh, you're a rocket scientist. You're really smart." And yes, generally, the people who do this are pretty smart, but we're not all straight A students. I was not a straight A student, so I struggled with that a lot. But I was always good at work. So I did have a good history.
Yeah. I lay on the scare, you gotta glow, you gotta glow. She had my attention, she gotta know.
I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of the Let's Gather podcast. I'm your host Zeke, and in this episode I have Adeena Mignogna to speak about being an engineer and being an author. You can find more information about her series by clicking the link in the description below. I love the content warning for trying to let me use this episode, and hope you have a nice day and enjoy the show.
So, thank you for coming to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So before we get started, I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. My name is Adeena Mignogna, and I'm a couple of things. I'm a writer, I'm an engineer, speaker, a mother, a whole bunch of things.
Nice. So what would you say would be your origin story and how you'd like to represent it?
Let's see, my origin story. Well, I'm almost 50, so I feel like it's a long story because I don't think I'm maybe fully formed yet. But I'm originally from New York. I grew up on Long Island, and I went to college at the University of Maryland. I came down to Maryland, and I've been here ever since in Maryland, and spent most of my life working in the aerospace industry. I build satellites, and I do a lot of software programming. But my real passion, well, I have a passion for that too, but I've always wanted to be a science fiction writer. So I would say everything that I've done is all goes into my writing. And so, yeah, it all builds up and goes into my stories.
Nice. And how would you like to represent that?
Well, as being a writer, being a science fiction writer, I have a few books. It's the Robot Galaxy series, and the first one is Crazy Foolish Robots, which came out last year. And then the second one is Robots Everywhere, which comes out next Tuesday.
Nice.
And then there's I'm working on the third one in the series.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get started with what kind of drawing you to like science and engineering and things of that nature?
A couple things. I think watching science fiction, specifically Star Wars. Star Wars came out when I was young, and I was very drawn to the robots. I fell in love with R2-D2 and C-3PO, and just wanting to learn how robots worked and how I could, maybe build them. And my dad was an engineer too, so I got a lot of encouragement there. And then also wanting to, watching science fiction and wanting to be in space, wanting to build spaceships. So all of it kind of came together.
Nice. And how is like building satellites and things like that? Not
It's hard.
Can have that.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's what I always wanted to do. And there's a lot of different things to do. Like, so I've done a lot of software and programming related to them, but that's just like one small piece. There are people who do like mechanical engineering and electrical engineering, and there's all the different parts and the different pieces. So I've done a lot of the software, which has been fun. I do a lot of software that helps control the satellites. So sometimes on TV, you'll see like the control center, and you'll see people sitting around all the computers, just looking at monitors, and the satellites obviously in space far away. So the software that they're using, that's the kind of software that I've worked a lot on. I've done other things too, but that's been the main thing.
Nice. And would you say like when you got to your career, it was everything you expected, or?
No, it was different. And that's mostly because I didn't think I was going to do the programming. I thought I was going to do like the computer aided design and like draw the satellites and draw the pieces. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I had done some of that while I was in college. And so after I graduated and got a job, that's the kinds of thing I thought I wanted to do. But, and I would apply for jobs doing that. and got called to this one company. And it turns out they were interviewing me to do software. I was a little confused, but I was like, well, if this is what they need me to do, well, I'll start here and maybe do something else later. And well, I've done mostly software ever since. So, yeah, so it was very, very different, but I also didn't completely know what to expect. I think, which is normal. Most people don't know what to expect of no matter what career they're going into, I think. It's actually kind of funny. Right before we got on, I was watching some clips. You had some YouTube videos from an episode, "Adulting is Hard." That was great. That was watching. That was wonderful because it's been a long time since I've been that young. and adulting is hard, even though, like I said, I'm almost 50. Adulting is still hard.
Definitely, I remember the episode. My friends, we all pretty much becoming adults, and I would just like, oh, what to do? There is no blueprint. Okay.
Yeah, no, there isn't. There really isn't. I mean, you do learn how to take care of yourself, right? But after that, and a lot of it's because everyone's situation is different, everyone's path is different, everyone's career or job is different, everyone's family situation is different, just everything is different. So there's no blueprint.
Yeah, I go to my mom for advice. So I started cut you off, but I go to my mom for advice. And when she was 24, she had a whole different life than I have right now at 24. So it's like not too much crossover.
Yeah. And everyone is, even just friends of mine who you would think would be kind of the same because we grew up in similar ways. No, as adults, we're all, very different, dealing with it in our own way.
And when did you accept that software was your career?
Well, I don't think I have yet. And actually, right now, I'm doing something slightly different. I do what we call systems engineering, which is really looking at the whole thing. It's a lot of documentation. It's a lot of understanding how the whole satellite works. So I'm not doing software right now. So I haven't accepted it yet.
And is it a lot of pressure, doing software for satellite, or is it just a regular day?
It's up and down. I would say it depends on the project I'm working on. I mean, it's difficult. We have a lot of hard deadlines to meet. And so that creates a lot of pressure. And depending on the specific project, there could be, people are depending on it. So it does create a lot of pressure. And, I have a large team and everyone is depending on everyone else. There is a lot of pressure.
And it's like in the movies where everybody's in the signs, like the white coats and at the computers, and then something goes crazy, everybody's running around.
No, it's not like that, especially, since the whole pandemic had started 2 years ago, a lot of us are working from home because what I do now, a lot of my job, with software and then now doing system engineering, which is a lot of documentation, I just need a computer. So I'm not in a laboratory. I'm not in a manufacturing facility. So I work from home. I work actually 5 feet, in that direction is where my work computer is. So no, it's not like that, but we meet a lot. We have a lot of meetings. We're talking a lot, and it's a pretty hectic pace, even if we're not physically moving around. One of my coworkers at the end of the day today, actually, he was saying, because I had a certain meeting at the end of the day, and I was asking him and the other team members if this was a meeting was worthwhile to them. And one of them said, yes, because this is one where we're kind of just talking about anything, and it's not high pressure. We can relax a little bit because he feels like the pace is, hit the ground running and go and do and do and do and do. And at this particular meeting, we can actually just chat a little, and it was a little, nicer, especially, some of my coworkers, including this individual, they came out of college and started their career in this environment. He's been working from home his whole career. So he doesn't have the social interaction that, I used to have and still have, because, some of my coworkers, I've known them for 10 years. so I knew them well before starting to work from home. And that's different than just like joining a new team and you've never seen these people in real life. So yeah, that's what it's like.
Definitely. Everything, meetings and emails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, email is not my favorite.
And before we get into writing, what would kind of say like your favorite part of your career?
I would say my two favorite parts are one, when we actually launch the satellite and it's working, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. That's just the best when it all comes together. But then also on just like a day-to-day basis, when my team members call me because they have a question or a problem and I actually help them. So I'm able to help answer their question or help them get through whatever they need. That's great. Because then I feel like that's when I feel like I've actually done something.
Is it like I see on Twitter like everybody's like Stack Overflow is their best friend?
Yeah. We do use Stack Overflow quite a bit.
Cool. So let's get into writing. So you said you always want to be a writer. When did that start?
At least back in high school, I took a creative writing class in high school and again in college. So I knew back then. I knew, but I also knew it wasn't like that was the only thing I was going to do. I knew I was going to have another career and then just still do this on the side. I never was going to be a full-time writer. I knew that. But I always wanted to write and tell stories.
Got it. Yeah. And how does like the creativity come out? Because I know like math and science and like writing and history are like very opposites and opposite sides of the brain, all that stuff.
They're not as opposite as a lot of people think, actually, because math and science and engineering is actually very creative because it all involves problem solving. Really, you have to think of new things, different things, ways of doing things, and solving problems. So it's actually, there's a lot of similarity to that. But then the kind of writing I want to do, writing science fiction, I want to write like imagine things in the future or technologies in the future that still sort of relate to what I do today. So it's not that far of a stretch, I guess.
And what is your creative process with writing?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What is your creative process with writing?
Well, oh gosh, I don't know if there's just like one. I mean, there's the fact that I get up every morning before anyone else in the house is up, before my husband's up, before my kids are up. And so I have an hour every morning to myself, and that's when I do most of my writing. But most of the ideas and the thoughts just come at me all the time. So I always have either, like sticky notes or notepad or my phone or something where I capture it. But then I do most of my stuff early in the morning. And yeah, in some ways it's that simple.
And what can people expect with your writing, your writing style?
For it to be somewhat like light and fun and whimsical. There is a lot of like, dark science fiction and wars and dystopian and everything is like terrible in the future and stuff. I don't, at least these books are not that. These are, there's a lot of robots and they're meant to be fun and playful. Like if you think of R2-D2 and if you think of Wall-E from the Pixar movie years ago and like all those kinds of fun robots and playful robots, like all smushed together. Those are my robots in the book. So it's meant to be, playful.
Not like the Terminator and everything like that.
No.
I remember reading iRobot in high school and I was like, this is fun.
Yeah. Yep. It's, I'm a big Isaac Asimov fan and his robots are great. So yeah, it's not meant to be, it's not dark.
It's like the other side people don't really talk about where things do work out with technology.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you believe that like technology will like work out like in a favor of everybody or?
Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, there's obviously a lot of wonderful things about technology, like the fact that we're communicating like this. I mean, is amazing that we can communicate with other people all around the world like this. This is great. But we're on our phones like all the time. And there's a lot of negativity that we can spread really quickly that way. So there's ups and downs. I like to be hopeful and optimistic that we'll learn how to have some balance, because there's a lot of great things with technology, and our whole modern lives depend on it.
Cool. And so when writing your first book, how did you know that was finished?
That's a really hard question to answer, because it took this book actually took like almost a 10 years to write. I'd started it in 2012 and rewrote it several times before I felt like I was getting anywhere. And then I had other people read it. I'm in a writers group, and we trade, we critique each other's work. And so that helped me, I think, get to a place where the first story was done. And when I did it, I knew there was going to be several other books. I knew I was telling a longer story overall. So I think working with other people helps a lot. Yeah.
Similarities. I was just thinking about writing and the similarities. Yeah. I'm good at math and science. And I like problem solving, but I don't like writing that much. Mm-hmm. I think anything simple, and it's like, okay, here's the problem, here's how I solve it.
That's okay, because everyone has different interests and stuff, and that's totally okay. Yeah, for me, I see a lot of the similarities, but it's not for everybody.
And so, since you say you knew you're gonna write more, is it like a long-term plan, or is it that the plan is built over like there's a new piece every time?
Well, so this series, I kind of have a plan for a total of 4 books. And then as I was writing recently, I was like, ooh, I want to take these 2 characters and have like them on a side book. So that's 5. But then I have another book I started writing a couple of years ago, and I think I want to turn that into a series too. It's also a lot of robots, but different, still a little light and playful, but different because it's going to take place on the moon. And I also like to inject as much real astronomy and science as I can, even though like the robots in these books, they're never going to be, it's not real. But like sometimes when we talk about space travel on the planets, I like to make it as real as I can. So the book I'm planning, this one that I have drafted that takes place on the moon, like I'm trying to make everything about being on the moon as real as it could really be. And then have robots that are very advanced and probably will never happen. But the moon stuff will be like correct.
And how do you like incorporate all like the factual stuff into it?
I mean, just research, so when I was in college, I actually studied physics and astronomy. So at least, so when it comes to stuff that's astronomy related, I have a background enough to know what I'm looking for. But then it's just research. And again, luckily technology, the internet, everything is right here. But because I have a background in astronomy, I know what I'm looking for in this case. If I was doing something that was like more biology, it's still doable because you can do a lot of research, but it'd be harder because I just don't have the fundamentals. I don't have the background in it. So just be harder.
Got it. Yeah. And what were people's first reactions to like their first book?
Pretty positive. I got a lot of great feedback, and the kind of feedback I was hoping for, where they see that it's light and playful. They enjoyed it. They were really looking forward to book 2. In fact, I think the biggest negative comment I got was when I put out the book, even though I knew there was going to be a book 2, 3, 4, I didn't make it obvious. So a couple of people were like, wait a second, she just wrote this one book and that's it. And I was like, no, wait, there's going to be more. So it was really, really well received. And as of, I'm waiting for that 100th rating on Amazon. There's like 99 ratings right now. I'm waiting for like number 100, like any minute.
Got it. So we'll jump back into your career. Mm-hmm. So you was able to like stick with it since you was younger, and then so how was like that decision just to stick with like this path?
Well, It's kind of funny that you say that because I actually didn't for a little while. When I was younger, and I would say I was about 28, I actually got very burned out and I quit engineering for a little while. And I opened up a store. I opened up a paint your own pottery store. But 2 years into that is when I was like, no, I really am an engineer. I really belong in aerospace. I need to get back into that. And so I did. So I did try not being an engineer and I couldn't. So I had to come back. But that helps me know that even on days that are really stressful or something, I know I'm still, in the right place for me. But the other thing that helps me is I like to do different things all the time. So like every 2 years or so, I'm working on a different project, still a satellite project or still something, but it's different. So it's different enough. I think it keeps me, continually like engaged and feeling like it's new. And I like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
And been doing this for a long time.
A long time. Let's see. My first satellite project, well, I was in college, but 1993, I got a job while I was in college at University of Maryland building spaceflight hardware. And the stuff I was doing CAD drafting, and the stuff that I built launched on a satellite in 1997. So yeah, but it's still up there working. It's studies the sun, and it's still collecting data that they use to understand the sun.
Is the sun doing well? I hope the sun's doing well.
Yes.
And so for when the satellite is sent up, is there any like upgrades that are made to the satellite, or is it just like that for the rest of the time it's up there?
Most satellites, that's it, except for some software. Some can, get software upgrades. Although we normally don't do that. Usually, when it's working, then we don't like to do anything. But sometimes that will happen as an experiment. Sometimes a satellite will be like, let's say we plan the mission for 5 years. So after 5 years is done, then it's like, oh, well, maybe we can use this to test something. But again, it's all software related because, we're not going up there and capturing it, except the company I work for right now. That's actually some of what we're doing is we are going to capture satellites to extend its life. And we've done that twice already. There's these missions called Mission Extension Vehicle, and folks can look it up on YouTube. So I work for Northrop Grumman, and if you look up Northrop Grumman Mission Extension Vehicle, you should see that we actually connected to another satellite. We've done this twice to basically be like a refueling tank to let it continue to be there because it needs fuel. We're not putting the fuel in it. We're just kind of grabbed onto it, and then we're able to just keep it where it needs to be. But this is the first time that was ever done. And so the project I work on right now is kind of like the next evolution of doing more of that kind of stuff. So to keep satellites that are up there continuing to operate for longer and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So like, is it a specific type of like operating like software for like satellites? There's something about like other satellites like on Windows 95 and things like that.
No, so most satellites work on like some kind of embedded operating system. So VxWorks is very, very typical. So no, it's not Windows. Although again, it might be possible that people have done a little bit of experiments with small CubeSats. Universities get to do stuff like that. Usually, companies like mine, we usually don't do stuff like that. We usually do things that like aren't new. We actually usually just kind of keep doing very tried and true, very tried and true things.
So me and the satellite about the same age. Yay. Nice.
Yep.
And so did you find it hard to start your career, or was it?
That's a good question. So, I mean, I had a lot of struggles in school. I was, a lot of people look at people in the aerospace industry and they call us, "Ooh, you're a rocket scientist. You're really smart." And yes, generally, the people who do this are pretty smart. But were not all straight A students. I was not a straight A student. So I struggled with that a lot. But I was always good at work. So I did have a good history, even when I was graduating from college, of already doing good work. So, but at first, I thought I was going to go to graduate school right away. And I was planning to go. And then like maybe a month before graduation, I woke up one morning, I'm like, no, wait, I don't want to do more school. I want to work because I'm not a good student. Why do I want to go to more school? I'm done with school. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing when I graduate. I need a job, because even though I was working as a student, I couldn't keep that job after I graduated. So, so I basically like took the first job that I was offered, just because I needed to have a job. I needed to pay my rent, and that. But I was very lucky, because that first job I was working at NASA's Goddard site, operating satellites, and it was really neat. I learned a lot, but it was not really where I wanted to completely stay. So it was like a year in is when I started looking for other jobs in the industry. And that's when that happened, where I thought I was going to apply for a CAD job, but then they were like, no, we want you to do software. And I was like, okay. So, I always had a pretty decent time with work and finding jobs when I needed to. So yeah, I would say like that part was okay, but it was really, like I said, coming out of just not having been a good student. So I was sometimes unhappy with myself and wondering, is it going to go where I want it to go? But it did. It did work out.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually these days, because a lot of, I do work with a lot of people who are recently graduated. They come and work on my teams, and I actually had, I'm not a hiring manager right now, but I had been up until recently. And so I talked to a lot of students who are about to graduate or just graduated. And a lot of them do ask me, oh, should I go get my master's right away? And it really depends, because there was this one guy who was working for me. He was working for me as an intern, and then we hired him as a full-time. But while he was an intern, he would tell me all the time how burned out he was from school. So when we gave him the full-time job, then he was like, Adeena, should I get my master's? I'm like, no, not right now. But you've been telling me for the last year how burned out you are. Just work. Don't worry about school. Get past that. Take a breath. And then you can always get your master's later if that's what you decide, you really want to do. But don't push yourself when you don't necessarily need to, because sometimes you need to just relax, just focus on what you're doing, enjoy life a little bit, I talk to a lot of people in their 20s and coming out of school about all these things.
I felt them.
Yeah.
And so the bachelor writing.
Mm-hmm.
So when creating a character, what's like the first step for that?
Sometimes it just pops in my head. The character just appears. Sometimes if I know the story and I have to make the character, and a lot of it is, a lot of it just pops in my head. But sometimes, recently I did need some new characters for the next book I'm working, for the next book in the series. I need some new characters. So I actually went to a website that it's about where you like take a personality test, and there's all the different like personality types. I actually decided I wanted to very deliberately make a couple characters that are very much that match those personality types. So that's what I started with. And I kind of took notes on, okay, well, this personality is like, they're very driven and they're very outgoing. And then this one is like the opposite, and I'm just starting with that to play with them. And then it's like, so then now that I know what my story is, well, then I take these characters that I know how they should behave and just start writing, just start writing.
So it's like that process of finding out who the character is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So getting all your variables together and then finding the solution.
Yeah, exactly. See, like I said, they go together. They go together. It's all problem solving.
And then when you were writing, did you have like a target audience or?
Not really. Really, I just kind of, wanted to write something that I would read myself, that I would enjoy. So I'm my target audience. Thinking that there are a lot of people who, like science fiction and like fun science fiction. I'm a big fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I was thinking about that a lot. And so the people who like hitchhikers, I think they would like my book.
Got it. And then with writing the characters, do you ever feel like yourself you've kind of like lose the focus of the story and you kind of write too much of the world?
Yep. Actually, the book that's coming out next week, I did have to cut a lot. And there's a lot of rewriting because, there was definitely some point where I was kind of going off in it just wasn't works. So, but I cut it. And that's, one of the nice things about writing is you can edit and edit until it's right and until it's done.
Got it. And how do you like publish everything and find all like the illustrators and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I'm doing, we call it independent publishing. I'm an indie author, so I chose to do it just through Amazon. So my books are all on Amazon. The cover, I came across this company, and I looked at a few, and I just liked their other samples, and it worked. And so I hired them to do all 4 covers at the same time, so they look all the same. And people I've gotten such great feedback on them. So I'm so happy.
Nice. Yep. That's definitely the wave. Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's where the readers are. So, there are other, people talk about just doing Amazon only versus being wide. That was a lot for me to digest. So I was like, well, let me just do Amazon right now. And maybe I'll go wide later. It was just easier to start this way.
Have a starting point and then be able to expand.
Yeah.
And with like publishing, do you feel like you want to like expand publishing, like expand writing into like different aspects, or just more of like you create books that you every time, like whenever you have the idea to?
Yeah. I've always had having the ideas is not the problem. It's really finishing stuff. Finishing is really hard. So yeah. And generally my ideas are just things that I would want to read. And yeah, I don't have I have no problem coming up with the ideas.
And then when somebody like reads your book, do you feel it a certain way, or is it pretty much neutral?
You mean for me?
Yeah, like if somebody reads it, because like for me, if somebody like reads my writing or like look at like critique something of mine, I can't like really be in that area.
No, I can. And I think that some of that is just, since I've been in writers groups where I'm used to getting feedback, both, we try to, help each other. So it's constructive criticism, even if they don't, like what I wrote. So I'm absolutely comfortable, but I think that comes with years of experience of just doing that. And you learn how to absorb the right stuff and ignore, again, my writers group, they're really awesome. But every now and then there's someone who can be a little mean. And you learn how to filter that out. You learn the difference between somebody really helping, and they might be saying something negative because they're really trying to help and something really wasn't working or whatever, versus the people who are just, being mean and not helpful.
Got it. And I'm still on how Stack Overflow is used in almost every aspect of tech and engineering and that type of field.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Wait. Yeah.
I'm just still know how like Stack Overflow is used by almost like everybody, every position.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
And also, do you have any questions for me? I forgot to say if you ask questions or anything.
Well, I don't know, but like I said, I really do want to finish, I am going to finish watching the adulting, because I think it's really interesting because I don't think, even though I do talk to a lot of people who are in that age range, I don't listen to them talk to each other. I talk, and that's with them, and that's how they talk to me, because I think I'm old enough to be you and your friend's mother. So how you guys talk to me in that about adulting might be different than how you guys talk to each other. Yeah. So this is really fun watching that.
It's like a insight of like how people how people think amongst themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Definitely. Yeah, what else? Cool. So with like speaking, let's stick on this topic. We're speaking to people who are younger. Do you ever see like common problems that always come up?
Do I see what come up?
Like common problems like almost everybody has.
A lot of people are, at least initially, I think, not necessarily confident in what they're doing, or intimidated. It's very easy for anyone to be intimidated. So I think I see that a lot, but that's normal. And that whole imposter syndrome, I see a lot of people feeling that. And again, that's normal. And it's also something that doesn't necessarily go away. Like I said, I kind of change projects every couple of years. And if I come into a new project, it takes a while to get into it. And that's when you have those feelings. But I would say that that's just really, really common for people to work through. And so no one should feel like they're alone with it, but it's workable. I mean, I tell people, especially when I was a hiring manager, I take a lot of pride in my decision. If I decide to hire somebody, it means I really do think that this person really should be here on my team. And I understand that people are going to have those feelings, but I want people though, relax, understand that we know you're new to the team. You're going to be learning some things, and that's okay. I still hired you for a reason. I don't just hire anybody. So I would say those are common things that I see. And of course, now with so many people, starting their careers in this work from home situation, I definitely think I see some common problems with people not getting engaged with their coworkers as much on a kind of socialish level that I'm used to and that we always had before. And I think that's a problem because then you really don't, it's just a different team feeling. And I don't think you get as close to the team and as close as your coworkers as you would otherwise. And so I think that's going to be a bit of a problem.
Definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
I work from home and I was like, don't really know my team, but we all respectful of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really different. I mean, when you, it's just really different. And it's hard for me to imagine, because it's really hard for me to imagine, because I remember, so 2 years ago when all this stuff was starting and we're having these thoughts like, oh, maybe we're going to have to work from home. And then really all of a sudden it was one day, the company said, okay, for those of you who physically can work from home, starting tomorrow, you're working from home. And for my team, it was fine because, we're on computers, we know each other already. So, okay, we're from home, we know each other. But for the new people coming in and joining us after, I could see how they're coming into a group of friends, and it's really hard when you don't have that, you're not there in person to connect. So I can see it. I don't know entirely how to help it other than to try to reassure people and make sure I'm trying not to leave them out, make sure they're part of the conversation. And it's really hard when you don't know them that well either.
And to speak on your time as a hiring manager, how was that working?
Mixed. On one hand, I don't mind. I enjoy the interviewing. And I'm very confident in my decision-making ability. On the other hand, there was a time where my company was pressuring me to hire a lot of people quickly. And I had to push back and say, no, I'm hiring the right people, because sometimes hiring the wrong people, just because they want me to hire so many, is not good. And so there was a lot of push and, with my management, and that was not fun. But we did hire some really good people in that time. who are still there doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's good.
Nice. And I think we can almost end it here. So say last question is, what would you name your origin story?
Not quite there yet.
Got it. And any last things you want to say? Any other acts?
No, just if anyone who is listening does like fun science fiction, find Crazy Foolish Robots on Amazon. Start there.
Well, thank you for being the guest.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime.
That brings another episode of the Let's Gather podcast to a close. Again, you can find more information about Adeena Mignogna's series by clicking the link in the description below. For next week, I have Shaquita Smith and Christopher Mormando to speak about being actors. I hope you enjoy this day, and I hope to see you there.